Imagine you want to learn how to cook an omelet exactly like Martha Stewart. You want to know how to entertain exactly like Martha Stewart. You want to know how to decorate your home exactly like Martha Stewart. What would be the ideal way of doing it? Well, obviously, having Martha Stewart move in with you for a couple of weeks where she could coach you every step of the way, answer every question would be fantastic. Where she could demonstrate right in front of you in your kitchen. That would be great. But what would Martha charge for something like that? 5 million? $10 million? Hi, I'm TJ Walker. This is the TJ Walker Success Show. We're all about helping you become more successful by boosting your communication skills and your confidence in your communication skills and using technologies to help you do that. So, the best possible way of really learning a skill is being there with the master live, one on one, in a coaching arrangement, open ended. I don't think there's really that much debate about that, but there's so many downsides to that. How many of us have $10 million to pay Martha Stewart to spend 2 weeks with us? That's not, even if I had the money, I'm not sure that's how I would allocate it. So that's why I want to bridge the conversation today to the very specific topic of cloning technology, digital clones, not just how they can be an extra to a course or a way of answering questions on a website, and those are fine, not just a way to save you time by answering email. But I want to specifically talk about highly specific ways a digital clone can be superior. That's right, I said superior to an actual live trainer because I'm live today, I'm a real person. How it could be superior to a video based course. And hey, I'm biting the hand that feeds me. I have hundreds of online courses, and that is where I make the majority of my revenue. But I'm here to tell you, after having reflected a great deal, having done a lot of research in the field, testing on my own clone, I've come to the conclusion that there are at least 10 highly specific ways a digital clone can be superior, certainly to a video based online course, and in many ways superior to a live coaching session, whether it's in a group seminar or live with other people on Zoom, or even one on one, face to face with an actual instructor. So, we're going to walk through this together. If you have questions, comments, let me know. You can add your comments to the comment section or the private chat, or you can hit the StreamYard link and come right on and talk with me if you so choose. Okay, so the first thing that I think really jumps out to me as superior in the cloning experience, certainly as I've been doing it for the last week or so, is it instantly makes it an active experience for the user, for the trainee, for the participant, for the coachee, whatever term or metaphor you want to use for this person who is experiencing the clone. It instantly can make it active because if you're in, for example, my course on how to do a job interview better, how to be interviewed better, you're going to watch a lot of videos from me. And yes, I'll have a homework assignment and I'll say, post it here. And I will give you a personalized critique, but that's a day later. With a digital coach, a digital clone coach, you can actually do a simulated interview right now, live, and get feedback. And it instantly makes it active. And all the research I've ever read, plus my own experiences, when you're actively doing something, you just learn a lot more. If you're actively in the pool doing the things the swimming instructor tells you, you're going to learn a lot better than watching a video from Michael Phelps talk about swimming. So that the ability to make any learning experience active is right away a huge, huge improvement and a superiority, I believe, of a digital cloning experience. The next one is there's so many more opportunities for you to actually speak. If it's a digital clone, it's a one-on-one experience. You don't have the time constraints. No one's watching you, looking at you. So when your clone asks you to practice something, or you just know you want to practice something, you want to practice a best man speech, or you want to practice what you want to say at a business meeting or a new business pitch, You've got opportunities to speak. And it's impossible to speak without thinking. Now, you can obviously say, well, I see people speak all the time without giving much thought and they say stupid things. Yeah, but still, when you are speaking, you are forcing your brain to be active. If you're watching a video, or for that matter, if you're in a classroom and someone is lecturing, could be the greatest instructor in the world, you can sit back and it's a very passive experience. You can daydream. You can sort of glance down and check out email. There's all sorts of things you can do, and it's a very, very different experience. So that's one thing I love right away that's superior is the sheer fact that you're speaking. So that's the second one. The third one related to that is it forces you, and I mean you, to actually be reflective. The act of speaking, the act of thinking forces you to reflect on whatever skill it is you're trying to learn, whether it's a personal development skill. In my case, with a lot of my students, it's a speaking skill. You're actually reflecting on, well, why do I start a speech saying, good morning, I'm happy to be here today? So it forces you to be reflective in a way that simply watching a video-based course doesn't necessarily do. So that's what I consider the third big strength and, frankly, advantage of a digital cloning coaching experience versus an online course or a group coaching session. The next thing, and a lot of these are related, I'll give it to you, it's one-on-one. It's truly one-on-one. Because now I'm comparing this to a traditional video-based course. And one of the advantages, and I've used this, one of the pitches of an online course is, hey, you don't have to be in a room with other people and be around their schedule. You can do it one-on-one with the online teacher giving you lectures. Yeah, that's true, but it's really the guru, the online instructor to the many students, even though you don't see those other students. With a digital clone, it's truly one-on-one because that clone, if properly programmed, is going to stop anytime you ask a question. They're going to answer your questions. They're going to go in any direction you want. After listening to you and your particularities, everything can be personalized to you. So if you say, for example, I want to prepare for a job interview where I'm going in as a senior marketing executive for a major trade association in the real estate space, then the clone can give you one-on-one personalized questions that relate to exactly what you're doing, what your needs are. A video-based course can't do that. If it's an in-person workshop and there's more than one person, they really can't do that. So that's what I consider sort of the fourth superiority of a digital coaching experience. The next huge advantage is a user can make sure they know one body of knowledge before they go to the next. There doesn't have to be any confusion. When you are in a traditional linear on-demand video-based course, you are beholden to what the instructor thinks everyone knows, what the instructor thinks they're getting, and going to the next point. So they can go to their third point, which rests upon a mastery of your second point, and you don't understand the second point. Think of kids learning math. A teacher could just go on to multiplication, and the student, if they don't understand addition, they're not going to get multiplication. You've got to go step by step, and that is an inherent flaw with traditional video-based on-demand courses. It's also a problem with live coaching and live training once you have more than a couple of people, because the instructor doesn't necessarily know what any one student is getting, and they don't necessarily know that everyone has mastered this subject before we go to the next subject, which builds upon this one. In a one-on-one coaching experience, it can be completely different. The clone can actually test and ask the user and test in some way to see that there's an understanding of one concept before going to the next concept. Plus, if the user doesn't understand something, they can say, hey, wait a minute, TJ clone or whatever clone you're using. Before we go to this next point, I'm not sure I've got this point down. Give me another example. Point this out in real life more. Let's do another case study on this. Let's do another test on this. So that's a huge, huge advantage, the fact that it can truly be one-on-one. So that's what I see as sort of the fifth advantage. It's related to the one-on-one, but the fact that you can make progress in a very systematic way only after mastery of one particular concept. So that's what I see as the fifth benefit. The sixth benefit is you're not time specific as far as any one day of the week or time of the day. With so many trainings, I mean, you may be in one continent and the best expert in the world is 12 hours away, and it's really hard to schedule that live time. It's not convenient at all. With a digital clone, everything can be done on your schedule. You might want to block out 14 hours a day for 2 weeks to really get to a true level of mastery. You might want to do 14 minutes a week every Saturday morning. If you're in a clone experience with a coach, you get to decide the time you want to allocate, and it's not time specific, tied into a real life coach and their convenience. So that's kind of the sixth advantage I see with digital cloning. Now, the next one is related to that. There's no end post. There's no ending time for the coaching session. If you hire a traditional coach, it could be for an 8-week program. If it's a video-based course, it may be for a very specific 10 modules or 100 lectures, or it's designed to be once a week for 4 weeks or 8 weeks. They're very time specific in most cases. Where you look at the highest level of coaching, and the top NBA players, teams, the top soccer teams in the entire world, they don't say we just want to coach for the first half of the season or the first month of the season or the preseason. They want to coach there all the time, the entire season, the entire preseason, the entire postseason, indefinitely. And with most coaching programs, you're hiring a coach for, again, a 4-week period. Might even be a year-long program, but it's designed to end at a set point, or a 4-week program, or in the case of trainers, in my case, with presentation skills and communication skills. So often everything is designed through the lens of one day. You've got one day to go from awful to great. And that's a lot of pressure. It doesn't necessarily work that way, because no one truly became great at anything in life working on it for one day. And in most cases, no one became truly world-class at something working on it every day for a year. With digital coaching, we've now opened up the opportunity for ongoing, unlimited, no expiration date coaching, so that someone can make progress and it doesn't have to have a stopping point. That's unique. Certainly, I've never seen an online video-based course that could do that. And unless you have just unlimited money, if you're Tiger Woods, yes, you can have a coach and a caddy with you indefinitely, forever, and it almost doesn't matter how much it costs because you have so much money. But for most people, that absolutely is not possible. But with digital coaching, it definitely is possible. So that was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th benefit I see. The next one, the 8th benefit, it doesn't have to be language specific. Now, at the time I'm discussing this, it is May 23rd, 2024. And cloning technology is already to the point where anything a digital clone says, it can be instantly translated into, depending on the program you're using, a dozen languages, 50 languages, 100 languages. Some AI programs contend they can translate you into any language. And this is now filtering out into different cloning platforms that are available to consumers at not a lot of money. This is a huge advantage because you might have admired Gordon Ramsay as a chef, for example, and you've watched his TV shows. You want to be the next Gordon Ramsay in your country. But let's say you live in a country where you don't speak English and you can kind of see visually what he's doing and you like his style and you like what the cooking looks like, but you don't really understand everything he says. So even if you had the money to hire Gordon Ramsay to come be your personal coach 4 hours a day for the next 2 months, which I'd have to assume he'd want to charge you $20 million for, even if you had that money, wouldn't help that much because you couldn't ask him a question if he doesn't understand your language, and you wouldn't necessarily understand what he says back if you don't speak English. Digital cloning solves that problem because your digital clone can speak in any language. TJ Walker, the real TJ Walker trainer, is kind of dumb. I only speak one language. But the digital clone of TJ Walker can speak, at this point, 50 to 100 languages. So the digital clone is superior in that regard. So that is I believe, the 9th benefit. The next one is the money. Money is a finite resource. And if you want to save money, obviously you can sometimes get an online course for $10, sometimes for free. So online digital courses do have the video-based courses that are linear, are often very inexpensive. There's no doubt about it. But if you want a true coaching experience, interaction, one-on-one, personalized critiquing, that traditionally costs a lot of money. Now, some people spend as much as $100,000 a day for certain high-level coaches. And if you want to hire Anthony Robbins for a day, it's probably going to cost you more than that. Or if you want to hire Beyonce to be your singing coach, she might charge you presumably $1 million or $2 million to be your coach for the day. So the problem with high-level coaching, high-level training, workshops, seminars, is they can be extraordinarily expensive. With a digital clone, now the owner of any one digital clone could decide, oh, okay, I only want to charge $1 million for anyone to access my clone. But it's also possible, because it's scalable, that someone who would normally charge, say, $20,000 a day for their time might make their clone available to people for, say, $20 a month. The monetization aspects of cloning is still in its infancy. It's still being worked out. But because it's scalable, because it doesn't take extra time, and in most cases, at a certain level, any extra money to deliver a cloning experience to anyone around the globe, there's so much more flexibility with pricing. So it's only logical to assume that many clone creators will charge a tiny, tiny fraction, far less than 1% of what they would charge if someone wanted them one-on-one for a day. I feel very confident in making that. I know I will be charging less than 1% of what I charge in a day for private training for someone to use my digital clone. So that, I think, is a huge, huge advantage. It's not necessarily an advantage over online video-based courses, because a lot of online video-based courses are inexpensive, but it's a huge, huge advantage over live trainings, live workshops. Even if you're in a group of 100 people, or certainly at an Anthony Robbins style big seminar, you can spend $500 a day or for a weekend very easily. And for more specialized workshops, let's say, a small group workshop of 5 people for media training, you might be asked to spend several thousands of dollars for that. A cloning experience can be so much less expensive. And that I think is a huge, huge advantage. So that was the ninth advantage as I see it. The next one I've given thought to, and it wasn't really apparent to me until just work I've done this week experimenting with my clone. And it's something that I think we shouldn't discount. Working with a clone is much, much less intimidating to people than working in a classroom with other people, or less intimidating than being in a Zoom live experience where there's maybe 8 other people, or let's say 10 other people in a training. You don't quite understand something, but you feel awkward in that you don't want to be the only dummy. You think, well, everyone else knows. I don't want to slow people down. Let me just keep my mouth shut. If it's a cloning experience, it's truly, since it's one-on-one, less intimidating. You're not embarrassing yourself at anyone. No one can see it. No one can hear it. So it's easier to speak, because for so many people in the world, speaking in front of even one stranger is intimidating. And so the natural reaction is just to let me keep my mouth shut. I'm just going to not say anything. That, unfortunately, is the default position of many people. So that's a huge flaw with sort of a typical group thing. And again, Dale Carnegie folks, they do a great job. But if you're in with 10 other people, it's sometimes too embarrassing to raise your hand and say, wait a minute, I don't get that. How am I supposed to use my hands when I give a speech? But if it's a one-on-one experience with a clone, it's much, much less intimidating. The other thing is, if you have hired Oprah Winfrey to give you coaching on how to be a great talk show host, you might be too scared or intimidated to ask the great Oprah Winfrey, if she's right there live in person with you or on a Zoom call, a question. You may think, let me just keep my mouth shut and soak up everything she says and write down everything she says because she's such a genius. And it can be intimidating. But if you were speaking to Oprah's clone and you knew that, well, the real Oprah isn't going to hear this, the real Oprah isn't going to see this, but I'm going to get all the expertise that Oprah has gained over her 40-year career. And I'm not wasting the clone's time. The clone doesn't have a sense of time. I'm not keeping the clone from jetting off to the Academy Awards. The clone's not going anywhere. It's going to free up the user to ask any question that pops into their mind. And therefore, less intimidating, therefore, much, much more powerful. So that's what I see as the 10th advantage of cloning, a digital clone coach versus the traditional video-based online coaching program. And also, I'm mixing and matching here. I'm also comparing it to the strengths and weaknesses of hiring a live coach or going to a live in-person training or workshop, whether it's in person or through something like Zoom. Now, since coming up with this topic and thinking about it, I've come up with a few more. Now, you could say these are related to the earlier ones. You might even say it's a little bit redundant. But I think another advantage is it is simply more interesting to be in a digital cloning experience, because the second an idea pops into your head, you can ask the clone. If the clone is now answering a question you just asked, it is inherently more interesting to you at that moment because they're talking 100% about what's interesting to you. Now, this is obviously related to strength number 4, which is it's one-on-one. That's obviously one of the advantages of a one-on-one conversation, a one-on-one coaching, is it is responsive. But I do think that it's worthy of a separate point, because so much of the problem of adult education and post-college learning, training in the real world, is it's frankly kind of boring. It's kind of dull. So to make something dramatically more interesting is not a minor point. And I do see that cloning, using a digital cloning coach, cloned coach, is just inherently more interesting if you use it the right way. Now, I'm sure some people can program their clone to be boring and drudgery and just lecture and not even let people respond. That's a separate issue. But the basic scope of how digital clones can work, and we're still in an infancy in this whole arena of digital clones. But from what I've seen already and how I've tried to construct my own clone, it's pretty easy to make the cloning experience much more interesting for the user because of the one-on-one and the exchange and the ability to ask questions and the ability to do simulations makes it so much more interesting. The next advantage I see is it makes you the star. When you are talking to a clone, it's different than when you are watching a video-based course. Now, I've got, again, hundreds of video-based online courses. I don't mean to say they're all awful. I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me. Digital courses can be great, and they were a huge advantage when they really became popular in the last 10, 15 years over just watching a YouTube video or reading a book in many cases. But there are very specific advantages now I see with digital cloning, and everyone has an ego. People like to say, oh, it's not about me. I don't have a big ego. We're human beings. We all have egos. So in a digital cloning experience, you can feel like you are the star. You're getting the attention. The focus is on you. This is obviously related to my fourth advantage of it's a one-on-one experience. But even a one-on-one experience, in a real conversation, you're trying to make the other person feel listened to. You're trying to make the other person share, make them look good, help them. In a digital coaching experience, you're not trying to make the clone feel good. You're not trying to give the clone equal time to talk about their successes so you can then share. No, it really is about you because you are the star of this experience. So that's what I think is, sort of a bonus one. We'll call that number 12. So 12 distinct advantages that digital clones have over either traditional coaches or traditional online video-based courses. Now, another one just pops into my head. I'll toss it out here. It's obviously related to some of these, but just the sheer magnitude of all of the opportunities you have with a digital clone to practice out loud in simulations and get feedback. That's obviously related to the strength of it being one-on-one and being able to ask questions at any point. But I'm talking about going far, far beyond asking a question. To me, being able to ask the clone a question is not much of an advantage. You can get answers to questions on Quora for free. You can get answers to questions on Wikipedia, Google, any free search engine. But the ability to do simulations, to do a simulated interview and have your clone questioning you, testing you, to have your clone ask you questions in real time. I mean, let's say you are taking a drama course. Let's say, and I'm not speaking on behalf of any of these people, let's say you've signed up for a course on how to be a great actor and you have Meryl Streep's clone. Now, Meryl Streep, I believe, does have a master class where you're watching her lecture, and I'm sure it's fun, but it's very passive, and she's the expert, and you're sitting back and listening. But imagine having Meryl Streep's clone. You're telling her about, hey, I'm in my college play, and we're doing a Chekhov play, and my character is, how would you suggest I get into the right mental framework for this character? And having Meryl Streep tell you and then give you an exercise to do. Imagine asking Meryl Streep for her advice on how to have an Eastern European accent when speaking English, because you're preparing for a high school play where you need to do that, or You're 22 years old and you're going to be in a commercial and you have to be a character like that. Think of how powerful that would be if you could get Meryl Streep to not only give you tips and advice on that, but to give you an exercise on, TJ, put your tongue at the top of your mouth and don't let your lip, something highly specific based on her own experiences of learning how to adjust accents. Again, I have no idea if she's ever planning on doing a clone. She may think it's a ridiculous idea, but that is an example of sort of all the different ways a digital clone could create simulated experiences for you where you're actively speaking, doing something. And we're not that far away from clones being able to watch you. In fact, by the time you're watching this, it may already be rolled out on a lot of cloning platforms where the clone can actually see what you're doing and give you instant feedback and feedback on your voice, which that technology is already available. So if you're getting advice on how to tie ties and you're tying your tie and you're trying to get that perfect dimple, for example, your clone will be able to tell you exactly what you did right, if you did it right, but also tell you what you did wrong and say, TJ, we're going to play this back. Look right here where you folded it here, but you didn't push with your finger hard enough. Therefore, you didn't create the dimple. Let's try it again. That's what I see as so extraordinarily powerful, because if you're doing a course and there's 10 people online, everyone else may get it and you might have missed it, and you're, again, embarrassed as the teacher to do it again. If it's a video-based course and it's linear, the instructor has shown it once, thinking, well, I've covered that, I don't want to be redundant. You might need redundancy on some points that other people don't. That is, to me, a part of the huge, huge appeal of digital cloning. Hi, if you're just joining me, I'm TJ Walker. This is the TJ Walker Success Channel. We are all about helping you become more successful in life by improving your public speaking skills, your communication skills for your career, but also for your personal life, really every aspect of your life, and to build your confidence in your communication and to use it in low-tech ways and high-tech ways. Low-tech, maybe you walk into a networking event, a party, and how do you start a conversation with someone? You don't need any technology for that. But if you're giving a presentation to 300 people at an industry conference, then you need to know the best ways of using a microphone, a PowerPoint projector, slide creation. And to me, the single most important technology advance right now that has the potential to aid and help communicators everywhere is digital cloning, creating a clone of yourself, all of your knowledge, your expertise, your thoughts, your insights, your principles, creating a clone of that so that anyone in the world at any time in any language can access your brain, access your ideas, and you can communicate with them and help them in whatever they're trying to do, whether it's communication, making a better omelet, learning how to design a dress, whatever it is, helping them do it more effectively. So that's what we're about. So I would love to hear your thoughts. If you're watching this video and you think I have wildly overstated the advantage of digital cloning, let me know. Post your comments. If you think I've missed a particular advantage, put it down. I would like to know. And a caveat here, I want to stress, I'm not saying that everything is 100% better with digital cloning. There are a lot of disadvantages. There's the potential of fraud. There's the potential of copyright abuse. There is a potential for really playing on people's emotions in a sickening way, where a clone could be created that attempts to trick someone into thinking, okay, I'm a real romantic partner for you, and then trick someone into giving them all their money and their access to their bank account. This is getting a fair amount of coverage in the popular press, and I think it should. There is a huge problem with the cloning of voices right now, where people are getting into other people's bank accounts because many banks traditionally had as the sort of the final security check having that person call, and the bank president, Milburn Drysdale knows how Jed Clampett sounds. So if Jed Clampett says, "Hey, send $1 million over, I've got to build Granny a new still," Milburn Drysdale would know, okay, I've got to do that. Well, nowadays, someone could clone Jed Clampett's voice and trick Milburn Drysdale. And forgive me for these early references from the 1960s. I don't sound like I'm 60 years old. I sound like I'm 120 years old. So if you're old enough to get that reference, congratulations for figuring out how to turn a computer on. But I think you get my point. There are many, many downsides to voice cloning, to image cloning. Certainly, the deep fake porn is horrific. It's a travesty for the celebrities this has happened to. And it's also wildly devastating, in particular to young girls, but really anyone this happens to, but teenage girls and other women. It's arguably a new and powerful form of sexual abuse using digital clones, where you take someone else's image and use it to make an X-rated movie. You're using it in an unauthorized way. So there's tons and tons of negative aspects of digital cloning, not to mention inherent problems with anything to do with artificial intelligence regarding bias and how, depending on what you put into it, it'll spit out. So if a digital clone is fed with the entire internet, pretty soon it can start spewing racism and sexism and xenophobia and all sorts of horrible, horrible things. I'm not sweeping that under the rug. I am talking specifically about one particular positive use of this technology, where an expert, an author, a coach, a consultant, a trainer is trying to help as many people as possible. And they want to take what's in their brain, their ideas. So when I built my own digital clone, I didn't ask it to suck in everything from Wikipedia or every book ever written about communication skills and personal development skills. I have put in so far about 6.5 million words from me. They're words I've spoken on my online courses. They're words I've written in my books. They're words I've said in podcasts, in YouTube videos. So it's pulling my expertise, my intellectual property, and rearranging it, simulating it, and then putting it out in words that it thinks, and I'm saying thinks with quotation marks, that it is using its programming abilities to say this is the most logical way of having words come out that could make sense to this user. That is what's happening. So that is my focus. And I'm going to leave it to other people to talk about all the downfalls, because that is what is getting most of the coverage. The harm of digital cloning of voices. We're going to see more and more examples of the harm of digital cloning of faces and bodies and entire people. But let's not lose sight, especially if you're a creator of any sort, of the tremendous possibility. Has there been harm by the internet? Has there been a lot of fraud from the internet? Yes. Do we really want to go back to 1992 when hardly anyone was on the internet? I don't think so. I remember those days of, typing on an actual typewriter, and so certainly in the 80s, an actual typewriter, making a mistake, getting white out, having to find an envelope, find a stamp, mailing a resume to someone. Do I want to go back to those days? No. So the fact that there's been rampant fraud and abuse because of the rise of the internet, I don't think any fair-minded person would say that means we really should try to get rid of the internet if we could. I think digital cloning technology is going to be extraordinarily powerful. and that there's so many positive uses that anyone who is a creator owes it to themselves and their community and their customers, their clients, their industry to spend a lot of time thinking about how they can harness this power for good. I'm TJ Walker. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back here live next hour, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Thanks.